What is going on, horror fans? Welcome to my official It 2017 movie review, where right from the start I want to let you guys know that this is going to be a spoiler-filled movie review, so in case you guys have not seen the film, please go on ahead and check it out and come back to this video so we can further discuss the events that have transpired in this film. And with that being said, this film is indefinitely different than the original film starring Tim Curry, in which I do have to commend the actors and actresses in this film. We had Bill, Ben, Beverly, we had Richie, Mike, Eddie, Stanley, and alongside Pennywise in this film. Pennywise, now I do want to go ahead and talk about Pennywise because the overall narrative of this film was pretty much surrounded with a group of bullied kids that band together and trying to figure out this mystery that was happening in their town of Derry, Maine. And the cast for this, we have Jeremy Ray Taylor, who in which played the role of Ben. We had Sophia Lillens that played the role of Beverly Marsh. We had Finn Wolfhard that played the role of Richie, Chosen Jacobs to play the role of Mike, Jack Dillon to play the role of Eddie, Wyatt Olive to play the role of Stanley, and of course we had Jaden Lemberg that played the role of Bill. Now we also had Bill Skarsgård that played the role of Pennywise, and before anything else, I will say this. Having to compare both Bill Skarsgård and Tim Curry's Pennywise would be a bit unfair because both versions of Pennywise in each movie were portrayed very, very differently. Now I will say this, Pennywise in this film is portrayed to be a psychopath. That is the best way to describe him because there were certain moments where he would terrify you because you didn't really know what to expect, and his overall demeanor kept changing because you didn't really know what he wanted. In the original film, you had a clear understanding that Tim Curry's version of Pennywise would obviously terrify you, but kind of like in a comedical way, because I can remember vividly when Tim Curry's Pennywise used to talk about, "Well, kiss me, girly boy," and just making fun of all these kids and trying to use claustrophobia to his advantage, having to manipulate the sight of illusion. So Tim Curry's Pennywise in the first film was kind of like a jokester, but here we see something very different from Bill Skarsgård, and I have to tip my hat to him because he actually played, you know, a very, very good role in this. Now, in the overall narrative of the film, we have a group of bully kids that band together to find out the mystery surrounding Derry, Maine, and all the disappearances that are happening all throughout the town. Now, by the very end of this movie, and I will touch upon this, you know, right now as we go further into the film, the overall ending from the original movie and this movie are completely different. Actually, in fact, we find out that in this movie, Pennywise actually rests and he comes back to pretty much feast upon the people of Derry, Maine every 27 years. So that was something that was never touched up on in the first film, but of course as we transpire in this movie, we find out that Pennywise is some sort of an entity. We don't know where he comes from. We do understand that he does have the ability to manipulate himself in creating the illusion of your fear and using that against you, because we saw several times where he was able to manipulate himself and mask himself as Georgie, as the father of Beverly, who in which we understand that Beverly has gone through some sort of a sexual trauma-like relationship with her father, having to manipulate himself, you know, to be anything he wants to be and using that to his advantage. Now, by the end of the film, I do want to touch up on that greatly because at the very end of the movie closed off with It Chapter 1 because we understand there is going to be a second part to this film. And the movie is relatively long, about 2 hours and 15 minutes, but the beginning of this film sucked you in with Georgie having to have his boat sink into the sewer with Pennywise talking to him, very similar to how we saw in the original movie. However, once Georgie went to go reach for his boat, unlike what we saw in the first movie we saw Pennywise pretty much open his mouth and grabbing Georgie and telling him, "You'll float too." That was actually changed, and we see how once Georgie reaches for the boat, Pennywise opens his mouth and he latches onto Georgie's right arm and completely tearing it off. So here we have a little innocent child with his arm missing. He goes on down into the ground, he's bleeding all over the gutter, and we see Pennywise's arm reach out from the sewer and he grabs Georgie's foot and he sucks him back into the sewer. So the sewer location is actually a very primary place for this film because it is a place where Pennywise dwells, it is a place where he feasts, and of course it is a place to where you don't know what to expect. It's a very unpredictable place filled with tons of illusions because you couldn't really tell as to what was real and what wasn't. And to me, I would say this, in my opinion, I think Bill Skarsgård played a much better portrayal of Pennywise in this film than the original film, and this is why. In the first film, you cannot deny that Tim Curry's version of Pennywise was a jokester, was a prankster. He was more or less a clown that had the intimidation factor, but more or less leaned towards the comedical factor than anything else. In the first movie, he was very funny, he was very, sadistically, comedical in his acts. In this film, there was nothing funny about Pennywise. He was a very, very serious entity, and he made that perfectly clear on his victims by using illusions, by using all of the previous victims to his advantage, and trying by the very end to seduce the kids and letting them know, if you give me Bill, I will let you all go and you can all grow old and die of old age and allow me to come back in 27 years to feast again. It was a very intense moment, and even there during certain parts we see how once Pennywise went back into his little slumber lair, we see that he says something involving fear and he jumps into the void. So by the end of it, there was no giant spider that they sprayed with battery acid. Actually, the clown is the entity, and they were actually reporting that in chapter 2 they're going to dive more into Pennywise's origins, because in this film pretty much sets up for a great character development process for each and every single person in this film. We saw all these kids go through all these tough times together as individuals in their homes, at school, and it's set up for a very good story in which, as we dive into the second film, we are going to have ourselves an origin story as everyone's going to grow older and finding out what happens to Pennywise after. But it was clearly, pointed out in this film that Pennywise is some sort of, otherworldly entity, because there was no way that this entity was able to do what he did in this film without any sort of explanation. Now, the explanation is not there in this film, so if you're looking to understand what Pennywise is, you're not going to get that story. However, you are going to get that story in chapter 2 of the It movie. So, but I will say this, there were certain downfalls of the film, and one of which I would have to say was Pennywise himself. I don't think the movie portrayed or showcased Bill Skarsgård Pennywise as much as I would like to see. Now, the one thing the original movie did good was we saw how Pennywise was executed so many times in so many different scenes, and having Pennywise do so much, Tim Curry was all over the place. Here, they kept Pennywise hidden all throughout the first acts of the film, leading more towards the second and especially third acts of the film. But I will say, if there was anything that I was disappointed on, it was seeing Pennywise far too less. I understand mainly that this story focused on the Losers Club and explaining their stories and having them grow as characters, but the one thing I think we all wanted to see more so than anything else was Pennywise. People wanted to see more of Pennywise, and you got Pennywise, but I don't think to as much of an extent as you wanted to see him in. But then again, that's just my personal opinion, and of course that is why this is a review. So in terms of character development for the kids, they actually had that more so than anybody else, but the character development for Pennywise was a bit lackluster because A, you didn't know what he was, B, you didn't know how to defeat him, even though by the end of it the kids made it clear that the way to combat Pennywise is to not fear him in the least. He made it perfectly clear that he will come back one day as he went into the void down into the well that he sank in. But of course, this film had a great portrayal of utilizing the bullies in the film, because you had a group of bullies that were out there trying to pretty much harm these kids and destroying their lives and making their lives pretty much a living hell. We had several different characters be killed off, including some bullies, as we saw one bully go deeper into the sewer as he was consumed by Pennywise, so I thought that was pretty cool. There was lots of growth, I think, with Sophia Lillis' character, Beverly, because Beverly was heavily involved with the kids more so than anything else, and you have to commend Bill's, courage in trying to find his brother Georgie, because there were certain, situations to where Bill encountered Pennywise and encountered Georgie, and his overall goal throughout the entire movie was to find his brother, to find out for himself if his brother was alive, and trying to have some sort of closure. And by the end of it, actually, Bill did see Georgie, and for the most part, we didn't really see that in the first film of having Bill encounter his brother, but here, we finally get to see Bill encounter Georgie, but only to have it be revealed that Pennywise was actually Georgie and using his body as a vessel and trying to create an illusion for Bill in order to bring him home and whatnot. So once it was all said and done, Bill snapped out of it and realizing it's not Georgie and shooting him in the head with the same gun that Mike was using to put down sheep. So this movie, I will say once again, had a bit of gore. There was lots of gore, lots of blood, and looking at this film in comparison to the first film I think was pretty boring in comparison to this. This was a very, very good movie, and you have to look at it from a standpoint from character development to overall storytelling and trying to, find out what Pennywise wants, but not fully exploring his origins, which again, we understand that there was a history in Derry, Maine involving this entity, this clown, and figuring out that yes, every 27 years, he just so happens to wake up and feasting on kids and trying to claim his victims, but we don't know why. So hopefully enough in the second film, we're actually gonna, dive deeper into what he is, into why he's doing the things that he's doing. And there were certain scenes where I think Pennywise was executed very, very well because he was so creepy, especially this one basement scene with Georgie having to be in the cellar and having to tell Bill, you'll float too, you'll float too, you'll float too, and then he kept saying that, he kept saying you'll float too, and then his body kept decaying like as if he was like some sort of a zombie. It was incredible to witness. It actually creeped me out. So this film, I would have to say, is definitely a recommended film for me to let you guys know to go ahead and check out, because it actually has a very good story, a very good cast and crew. The overall effects of this film, the overall, utilization of the soundtrack and whatnot was very well done. And I think by the end of this film, you will walk out saying, damn, that was a really good film. And if you pay attention closely, you can find some pretty good Easter eggs in the film. I actually picked up the original Pennywise clown having to be in one of the rooms inside of this burnt down house that led and connected all the sewers, and in which, the Losers Club tried to go in there and figuring out what was happening. So there's a lot of history going on with Pennywise. Again, this movie does not answer many questions, but in terms of Pennywise trying to seduce these kids and breaking them up and getting them to be scared, it was done very, very well. But I want to know down in the comment section below your overall thoughts on this movie. Did you guys like the film? Did you guys hate the film? What are your overall thoughts on Pennywise? Start a conversation down below, guys. I would love to get your thoughts. Thank you all so very much for watching. If you guys are new to this channel, don't forget to punch that subscribe button and turn on notifications. That way you guys can be notified whenever a new video is posted onto this channel. Tune back in for more if you guys enjoyed the review. Slap a like down below, and I'll be seeing you all in the next movie review. Take it easy, everybody. Peace.